These are the times that try men's souls. The government is corrupt. The political system is dysfunctional. Both political parties have not only failed us, they have betrayed us. We cannot trust them with our futures. We, the people, must take back control ourselves. Welcome to the revolution, and welcome to Revolution Television. Thank you for joining us here at AEA4USA.com, headquarters for the Second American Revolution, AR2. My name is Lawrence Hebron. And now for our revolutionary look at the news. Headline: Religious freedom laws under attack as discriminatory. On April 2nd, the governors of Arkansas and Indiana signed revised versions of the religious freedom laws previously approved by their legislatures. The revisions were made to prevent an expected backlash from homosexual rights activists and others who opposed the measure as potentially discriminatory. Of the two, the Indiana law has attracted more attention. It expanded upon the federal law to allow both individuals and businesses to argue in court that their religious beliefs prevented them from providing goods or services to the members of particular groups. An example would be a Christian baker who declined to bake a cake for a same-sex marriage couple because the religious beliefs of the baker strongly condemn such unions. In some states, such a baker could be charged with discrimination and possibly even a hate crime. Well, the legislators and governors of Indiana and Arkansas wanted to make sure that its citizens understood that the First Amendment to the Constitution was still in effect in their states. First, I agree wholeheartedly that a person has a legitimate reason for refusing services which offend his religious convictions. Beyond that, however, there is a far more to this than just religious grounds for justifying the right to refuse service. Let me begin with an illustration. As a homeowner, are you entitled to refuse entry into your house to anyone for whatever reason, assuming, of course, that you haven't committed a real crime which would justify entry by law enforcement? Well, the answer is, of course you are. I can deny entry to my home to anyone, even if my reason is biased and bigoted. I'm entitled to slam the door in the face of Muslims and Christians and Jews and Buddhists and Hindus or anyone else I choose. I can refuse to open my door because someone is black or white or brown or red or yellow or green or any other color for that matter. You may disagree with my action. You may call me a bigot. You may decide to take me off your Christmas card list or refuse to say, "Howdy, neighbor," the next time you see me. But you are not entitled to go whining to the government to force me to open my property to those to whom I choose to close it, period. Well, a business is also private property. And if a business owner doesn't want to serve blacks or whites or browns or reds or yellows or greens, or Muslims or Christians or Jews or Buddhists or Hindus or homosexuals or heterosexuals or anyone else, he is within his rights. And to argue otherwise doesn't make you enlightened. It makes you a tyrant. Now, long ago, some misguided petty tyrant decided that there was a public nature to businesses and that this justified the violation of property rights. Why? Why are my property rights suddenly void just because I do business with members of the community? There's a public nature to my home as well. There is a driveway which connects my home with a public street, which I use to move from place to place. There is a walkway which connects my front door with that public street. I do business with members of the community, and some of the work I perform with members of that community is done from my home. So is that public nature sufficient to warrant the revocation of my property rights? Of course not. And only a self-absorbed tyrant would argue otherwise. Property rights are not revoked simply because the property is a business instead of a home. So, in conclusion, if you want to deny service to someone for religious reasons, you are entitled. Furthermore, If you want to deny service to someone simply because you want to, you are entitled. I may not like your reason. I may choose to never again do business with you, but I am not entitled to violate your property rights in order to force you to use your property my way instead of your way. And neither is the government. Well, Ian, we have seen an explosion of anti-discrimination laws and more recently hate crime laws that, in my view, wrongfully infringe upon property rights. Now, I can understand such legislation and regulation when it applies to fully public agencies, truly public agencies like the government. Governments should not be allowed to use public funds to discriminate against specific groups unless the members of these groups pose a danger to the society. It seems to me, however, that this rationale does not apply to private property. Private property is private, which means, among other things, that its use is privately controlled. Government control over such important aspects of a business's operation, such as the right to refuse service, turns private property into quasi-public property, which is a violation of one of our most fundamental rights. Or so I think. So am I wrong?
No, I think you're quite right, actually. One example that I'll use a couple of examples here, but one, first of all, is over the years I've managed many websites. And as part of those websites, we've had discussion forums. The subject of free speech often comes up in those forums when a certain code of conduct is expected of the members of that forum. Well, the answer is that they have a right of free speech, and that free speech cannot be denied by the government. It can, however, be denied by the owner of that particular website if it does not fit the conduct required for the use of that site. That is a guarantee that it cannot be infringed upon by the government, not a public or a private entity. Another example I will use is, let's say that you own let's say that you're a gay couple and that you own a business that is, a pizza shop, a florist. Maybe you make cakes. And if somebody comes into their shop and asks for a bouquet of flowers or a cake or a pizza, and let's say they want to have their party catered by that pizza shop, and as part of that, they wanted the cake or whatever to celebrate anti-gay rights. Now, don't they also have a right to say, no, we don't agree with that and we will not allow that? Or let's say that you are a Muslim and you have a business, and part of that business requires you to do interaction with the public, and someone from the public comes in and wants to use your business as a platform to promote Islamophobia. Now, don't you have a right to say no? I definitely believe we have a right to say no, and I'll take it a step further. These laws that are designed to stop hate crimes as a whole. Now let's think about that just for a second. What is hate? Hate is not an action. Hate is an emotion. So now we have a system that outlaws emotion that is not based off of a physical action. A crime cannot be an emotion. A crime requires action. So just some things to think about. I'll toss it back to you.
Well, I think there's some excellent points in there, including the thing about our rights. The Constitution basically tried to define a structure of government, but when it comes to rights, it was trying to mostly tell us how we are to be protected against the government, not against one another. So if I have views that offend some people, and I know I do, just as they have views that offend me, I'm entitled to that. I'm entitled to express them. I'm entitled to write about them. I'm entitled to say about them. And so are they. And the government can't step in just because they happen to be on my side or on the other side and infringe that. So again, the point here is the Constitution says what government can and cannot do. It really isn't addressing so much the matter of what people can and cannot do in this sphere. And certainly as we look in this matter of rights as they apply to the Constitution, the holy trinity of rights is one way of putting it, that our founders wrote about were life, property, and liberty. Without these, people cannot pursue their happiness. Now, the so-called anti-discrimination laws that we've been talking about that are imposed on businesses violate both property and liberty rights. And this strikes at the heart of our constitutional republic. Now, Ian, do you think that our petty tyrants are just incapable of seeing this? Or perhaps they see it very clearly? And this is exactly what they're trying to accomplish, the destruction of our constitutional system, because it stands in the way of their oppressive agenda.
Well, I think that there's obviously there's a lot of things going on here, but at the heart of it is the desire for them to control you, to control us. This is deep in the philosophy of communism, and in fact, I believe this is in a lot of ways this is very, very Marxist. I think you have a quote coming up that will kind of highlight that fact. But much of my belief system is based off of libertarian thinking, in that I do not have a right to harm you, but you do not have a right to infringe on my life. And as long as the actions of my life do not harm you, they do not, as Andrew Napolitano likes to say, pick your pocket or harm you. You have no say in how I lead my life. And I think this goes right to that thinking again of the desire of, it seems to be the left, it seems to be the Democratic side of the political spectrum that very much believes in control. It's all about control. They want to be in control of every aspect of your life, what you do with your property, how you use it. They want to have the right to take your property from you if they disagree with how you use it. And that goes to eminent domain with property rights, physical property, and it goes towards asset forfeiture laws, which our new proposed Attorney General is very, very much in favor of. Taking your property because they disagree with some aspect of how you have lived your life. So yeah, I think that you're spot on the money. I think that this is a Marxist theology. It is a Marxist way of thinking. Control every aspect of everybody else's life because they think they know how to live your life better than you do.
Absolutely, and this is exactly what the founders tried to prevent. And the irony of this whole situation is that we are fast becoming exactly what we have always fought against. If you look at the history of the United States, you see it as a history of a fight against oppression. And yet our so-called progressives are in fact regressive, and they are oppressive. So instead of progressive, they are setting a standard of oppression, the likes of which we have not seen in this country before. And we continue down this pathway. And again, we are becoming what we have always fought against. We fought against it with King George. We fought against it in the British again. We fought against it in oppression against race in the Civil War. We fought against it in World War I, World War II, Korea, just on down the line. And now we are becoming the very thing that we have fought against. The Constitution is here to protect our rights, not to violate them, not to empower the government to step in and violate those rights. Well, that's our revolutionary look at the news. We have a couple of quotes to go along with that subject. As you probably know, one of the chief mentors of our founders was John Locke. And he once wrote that government has no other end but the preservation of property. Now we contrast that with this next quote. The theory of communism may be summed up in one sentence: abolish all private property. Karl Marx. So, whose side are you on? John Locke Karl Marx. Well, the American Eagle Alliance is leading the charge in fighting the Second American Revolution. Why? Because we believe that more of the same is only going to get us more of the same, and that's all the Republicans and Democrats are offering, more or less of the same. And that's only going to continue our problems, not solve them. Now, among other things, we conduct Patriot Training Days that will teach you and your organization how to fight and win the Second American Revolution in less time than it took to win the first, without taking over the White House, the Congress, the Supreme Court, or any constitutional amendments. In 1776, we the people rocked the world. We think it's time to do it again, and we'll be happy to tell you how. If you'd like to schedule an event in your area for you and your Patriot organizations in that area, please call 909-913-7878. Again, 909-913-7878. Or if you'd like me to come and discuss any of the ideas found in Solutions, Guidebook for Rebuilding America the Great, or AR2, Handbook for the Second American Revolution, you can call that same number, 909-913-7878. Again, you can go to aea4usa.com and see past recorded episodes as well as other materials of interest to the Patriot community. That's AEA, the number 4, USA.com. And if you're looking for those books, Solutions or AR2, best place to do that is probably Amazon. They're available at other places, but Amazon's probably the quickest and cheapest way to get them. Just search for them under my last name, Hebron, Hebron. Well, thanks again for listening to us. Tell your friends they can listen to archived episodes of Revolution Television on aea4usa.com. Now, let's get cracking, Patriots. We've got a country to save.